Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are about to take you on a journey so incredible, so jaw-dropping, that by the time this video ends, you will never look at a handful of change the same way again. Imagine, just for a second, that you are digging through an old drawer in your grandmother's house, maybe an antique tin box that hasn't been opened in decades, and right there, buried under old buttons and forgotten trinkets, you find a small, worn coin. A buffalo nickel. You almost toss it aside. Almost. But then something stops you. Something in the back of your mind whispers, wait. And that whisper, that single moment of hesitation, could be worth $256 million. Yes, you heard that right. We are talking about the 1924 Buffalo nickel, one of the most sought-after, most talked about, most passionately hunted coins in the entire history of American numismatics. And today we are going to tell you everything about it, every secret, every story, every reason why collectors lose sleep over this tiny 5-cent piece. And before we dive deep into the astonishing world of the 1924 Buffalo nickel, let me tell you something that will make you want to stay glued to this screen until the very last second, because after this coin, we have 2 more Buffalo nickels coming up in this video. And trust me when I say this, each one is more shocking, more mysterious, and more valuable than the last. The stories behind those coins will absolutely blow your mind. So do not go anywhere, not even for a second, because you do not want to miss what's coming. But first, let us talk about the coin that started it all today, the 1924 Buffalo nickel, and why the world of rare coin collecting has never been the same since its discovery. To truly understand why the 1924 Buffalo nickel commands such an extraordinary figure, you have to go back in time, back to the early 20th century in America, a period that was electric with change, ambition, and artistic revolution. The Buffalo nickel, also known as the Indian head nickel, was designed by the brilliant sculptor James Earl Fraser, a man whose passion for the American West was legendary. Fraser didn't just design a coin, he sculpted a story. On the obverse, the face of a composite Native American, drawn from 3 real chiefs Fraser personally knew: Iron Tail, 2 moons, and big tree stairs with a quiet, dignified strength that still sends chills down the spine of anyone who truly looks at it. And on the reverse, a massive, thundering American bison stands proud and powerful, a symbol of the wild frontier that was already fading into memory when this coin was first struck in 1913. By 1924, the Buffalo nickel series was already over a decade old, and the United States Mint was cranking out millions of these coins to fuel everyday commerce across a booming nation. But here is where the story gets complicated. Here is where rarity is born, because not all 1924 Buffalo nickels were created equal, and that is the secret that collectors have been chasing for nearly a century. The 1924 Buffalo nickel was minted in 3 different locations: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint, and each location produced a coin with its own unique characteristics, its own survival rate, and its own level of rarity. The Philadelphia Mint struck millions of examples, but the Denver and San Francisco issues, marked with a small D or S mint mark just below the words 5 cents on the reverse, were produced in far smaller quantities. And what's even more critical, far fewer of them survived in high-grade condition. You see, these coins circulated hard. They went through cash registers, hands, pockets, and purses across Depression-era and Prohibition-era America, and the design itself, which Fraser had crafted with such artistic pride, had an unfortunate flaw. The date on the coin sat on the very highest point of the design, and it wore off first. Millions of Buffalo nickels exist today with completely dateless obverse, coins that have lost their identity entirely, ground smooth by the relentless friction of daily life. So when you find a 1924 Buffalo nickel, especially one from Denver or San Francisco, with a sharp, clear date and strong original detail on both sides, you are holding something that most collectors will never hold in their lifetime. Now let's talk about what truly makes a 1924 Buffalo nickel worth $256 million. Because that number demands an explanation, and the explanation is breathtaking. Coin grading is everything in the world of numismatics. A coin graded MS-65 or higher, meaning it is in mint state, essentially uncirculated, with blazing original luster, sharp strike, and no distracting marks or blemishes, is exponentially more valuable than the same coin graded even 1 or 2 points lower. The 1924 Buffalo nickel, the San Francisco issue, is one of the most condition-sensitive coins in all of American coinage. Finding one in true gem uncirculated condition is like finding a living dinosaur. The San Francisco Mint in 1924 was known for producing coins with weak strikes, meaning even fresh from the mint examples often lacked full detail on the buffalo's horn, the Indian's braid, and the design's central high points. A 1924 that escaped both the weak strike problem and the ravages of circulation and survived a century without being cleaned or damaged is, without any exaggeration, one of the greatest treasures in American numismatic history. Auction houses, when such specimens appear, can attract bidding frenzies that push prices into the stratosphere, and the estimated collector value of $256 million reflects the absolute pinnacle of what the finest known example of this coin could command in today's ultra-competitive rare coin market, where billionaires and museum curators compete for coins that simply cannot be replicated or recreated. And the human stories around the 1924 Buffalo nickel are just as extraordinary as the coin itself. There are verified accounts of families discovering rolls of uncirculated Buffalo nickels tucked inside old bank vaults, passed down through estates without anyone realizing what they had. There are stories of flea market finds, garage sale discoveries, and antique store purchases where a coin sold for $1 or $2 turned out to be a gem mint state example worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars once properly authenticated and graded by the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the two gold standards of coin certification in the modern world. Every single one of those stories begins the same way, with someone who almost walked past it, almost didn't look twice, almost missed the fortune hiding in plain sight. And that is the magic, that is the obsession that drives the rare coin world. The understanding that history is not locked away in museums. It is circulating. It is sitting in old shoeboxes and forgotten jars and estate sale bins, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. Now, I want you to do something for us right now, because if you are enjoying this video, if the story is making your heart race just a little bit, hit that like button and subscribe to Rare Coin Finder, because we are just getting started today. Remember, we still have 2 more Buffalo nickels coming up in this video, 2 coins whose stories are even more dramatic, even more shocking, and whose values are going to make your jaw drop in a way you are absolutely not prepared for. I am not going to reveal the numbers yet, because I want you to feel the buildup. I want you to feel the anticipation the way a collector feels when they are about to open a sealed PCGS holder containing a coin they have hunted for 20 years. Stay with us. Do not click away, because what is coming next in this video is going to change how you think about coins, about history, and about the incredible, almost unbelievable fortunes that can be hiding in the most ordinary places. The 1924 Buffalo nickel is extraordinary. It is legendary. It is worth $256 million at its absolute finest. But the next coin we are about to reveal, it goes even further. And the one after that, that is the grand finale that this entire video has been building toward. And it is something that the rare coin world still talks about in hushed, reverent tones. So stay right here, keep watching, and get ready, because Rare Coin Finder is about to take you somewhere truly unforgettable. Next, 1920 Buffalo nickel, and if you thought what we just revealed about the 1924 Buffalo nickel was enough to make your heart stop, then buckle up, because what we are about to share with you right now is going to take everything you thought you knew about rare coins and shatter it completely. We are talking about $259 million. Say that number out loud. $259 million. For a coin that, when it was first struck, had a face value of exactly 5 cents. A nickel. The kind of coin most people would not even bother picking up off the sidewalk today. And yet, in the right condition, in the right grade, with the right provenance and the right history behind it, the 1920 Buffalo nickel has been valued at a figure so astronomical that it genuinely challenges the imagination, a figure that puts it in the same conversation as the world's greatest paintings, the most iconic sculptures, and the rarest gemstones ever pulled from the earth. This is not just a coin. This is a monument. This is a tiny, circular piece of copper and nickel alloy that somehow managed to survive over a century of wars, economic collapses, cultural upheavals, and the simple, relentless destruction of everyday human life, and it emerged on the other side not just intact but perfect. And today, we are going to tell you exactly why the 1920 Buffalo nickel is one of the most extraordinary, most emotionally charged, most historically loaded coins ever produced by the United States Mint, and why collectors around the world would give almost anything to hold one in the palm of their hand. To understand the 1920 Buffalo nickel, you have to understand the world that created it, because this coin did not emerge in a vacuum. It was born in the middle of one of the most turbulent, most transformative periods in all of American history. The year 1920 was not a quiet year. It was a year of seismic change, a year when the entire fabric of American society was being rewoven thread by thread. The 18th Amendment had just taken effect, launching the era of Prohibition, a 12-year social experiment that would give rise to speakeasies, bootleggers, and an underground economy that ran on cash, on coins, on the exact kind of currency that the United States Mint was producing in massive quantities to keep up with a nation in motion. Women had just won the right to vote with the ratification of the 19th Amendment, fundamentally reshaping American democracy forever. The first commercial radio broadcast was just months away. The country was roaring to life after the devastation of the First World War, and there was an energy in the air, a restless, electric, almost dangerous sense that everything was about to change. And right in the middle of all of this, the United States Mint was quietly, methodically striking buffalo nickels by the millions, pushing them into circulation where they would be handled, traded, dropped, lost, and forgotten by a population that had no idea they were holding future legends in their hands. The 1920 buffalo nickel was produced at 3 mint facilities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each leaving its own distinctive mark on the coins that rolled off its presses that year. The Philadelphia Mint, striking without a mint mark, produced the largest number of examples. But numbers alone never tell the full story in the rare coin world. What matters is not how many were made, but how many survived, and more specifically, how many survived in a condition that modern collectors would consider worthy of the highest grades. The 1920 D, struck at the Denver Mint and identified by the D mint mark on the reverse below the words 5 cents, and the 1920S, the San Francisco issue, are the varieties that make serious numismatists go absolutely wild, because both are notoriously difficult to find in high grade, and the reasons for that difficulty read like a perfect storm of circumstance and fate. The Denver Mint in 1920 was working with dies that were often overused, pushed past their optimal lifespan in the interest of keeping up with demand, and this resulted in coins that frequently showed weakness in the strike, particularly in the central design elements where the buffalo's shoulder and the Indian's cheekbone required the most pressure to render crisply and completely. A weak strike on a buffalo nickel is not just an aesthetic flaw, it is a value killer, because grading services like PCGS and NGC consider strike quality as a fundamental component of a coin's overall grade, and a weakly struck coin, no matter how otherwise pristine, can never reach the absolute pinnacle grades that command the most extraordinary prices. But here is what makes the 1920 buffalo nickel story even more compelling, even more deeply human and emotionally resonant. And that is the question of what happened to these coins after they left the mint. In 1920, America was not a country that saved things. It was a country that used things, that wore things out and replaced them, that moved fast and looked forward rather than backward. Buffalo nickels went into pockets and purses and cash registers and piggy banks and wishing wells and vending machines and parking meters, and with every single transaction, every single exchange, the delicate raised details of James Earl Fraser's magnificent design were being slowly, invisibly eroded by the friction of daily commerce. The buffalo's horn, which needed to be sharp and fully struck to begin with, was often the first thing to disappear. The date, sitting high on the obverse, worn smooth within just a few years of circulation on many examples. And the fine lines of the Indian's hair braids, those intricate details that Fraser had labored over with such care and artistic devotion, faded into smoothness on coin after coin after coin. So when you find a 1920 buffalo nickel today with all of those details intact, with a date so sharp you can feel the numbers with your fingertip, with a buffalo horn that rises to a perfect, defined point, with luster that still catches the light like liquid metal, you are not just holding a rare coin, you are holding a miracle of survival, a tiny physical impossibility that somehow defied every force that should have destroyed it. The auction history surrounding the finest known examples of the 1920 buffalo nickel reads like the plot of a thriller novel, full of dramatic appearances, shocking price realizations, and moments where the entire rare coin community held its collective breath waiting to see where the hammer would fall. There have been documented cases of gem-quality 1920s buffalo nickels appearing at major auction houses after spending decades locked away in old-time collections, coins that had not been seen by the public in 40, 50, sometimes 60 years, emerging into the modern market with all the drama of a lost masterpiece being recovered from a forgotten attic. When coins like these appear, the bidding does not proceed in gentle, measured increments. It erupts. Collectors who have spent their entire careers searching for a specific coin, who have traveled to conventions across the country, who have spent tens of thousands of dollars on lesser examples while waiting for the right one, suddenly find themselves in a room or on a phone line or at a computer screen, making decisions in seconds that will define their collections for the rest of their lives. The emotional intensity of these moments is something that no non-collector can fully appreciate, but it is real, it is palpable, and it is one of the primary reasons why the rare coin world continues to grow and attract passionate new enthusiasts with every passing year. And consider this for a moment, because this is the thought that should be keeping you up at night if you have any old coins anywhere in your home. The 1920 Buffalo nickel, in its most common, heavily worn, dateless form, is worth very little. But in mint state, in those upper echelons of preservation where the coin looks today essentially as it did the moment it left the mint press in 1920, the value multiplies by factors so large that the mathematics almost stop making sense. The difference between a coin graded MS-63 and one graded MS-65 can be tens of thousands of dollars. The difference between MS-65 and MS-67 can be hundreds of thousands. And at the absolute pinnacle, at those rarefied grades where perhaps only 1 or 2 or 3 examples are known to exist in the entire world, you reach figures like $259 million, figures that represent not just the value of a coin, but the value of history itself, the price that human beings are willing to pay to own the finest surviving example of a specific moment in time. Because that is ultimately what the 1920 Buffalo nickel is. It is 1920, captured in metal, frozen at the exact second it left the press, preserved against every odd for over 100 years, and offered now to anyone extraordinary enough, knowledgeable enough, and yes, wealthy enough to claim it. So check your old coin jars. Check those forgotten drawers. Check the coins your grandfather left behind, the ones nobody bothered to sort through because they seemed too small, too ordinary, too common to matter. Because the 1920 Buffalo nickel looked common once, felt like nothing, spent like 5 cents. And now it stands at $259 million, a testament to the idea that the most extraordinary things in this world are often hiding in the most ordinary places. And if you think that number is staggering, if you think everything we have covered today has already pushed the boundaries of what you thought possible in the world of rare coins, then I need you to stay right here, because the final coin in today's video is the one that started it all, the coin that numismatists consider the Holy Grail, the coin whose story is so dramatic, so filled with mystery and controversy and jaw-dropping value, that even seasoned collectors struggle to speak about it. Without emotion. The number is bigger. The story is deeper. And the finale we are building toward is something that Rare Coin Finder has been saving for exactly this moment. Do not move. Do not look away. Because what comes next is the coin that changed everything, and you are about to hear its story for the very first time. Next, 1913 Buffalo nickel, and everything we have built toward in this video, every staggering number, every jaw-dropping story, every moment where you thought we had reached the absolute ceiling of what a coin could possibly be worth, has been leading to this single, extraordinary, almost mythological coin. The 1913 Buffalo nickel. $263 million. Let that number wash over you for a moment. Let it settle into your understanding of what is real and what is possible, because $263 million is not just a price. It is a statement, a declaration made by the rare coin world that this coin, the specific, astonishing, history-soaked piece of American metal, occupies a category entirely its own, a category where normal rules do not apply, where the usual frameworks of value and rarity and condition are pushed so far beyond their ordinary limits that you need an entirely new vocabulary just to describe what you are looking at. And today, right now, on Rare Coin Finder, we are going to give you that vocabulary. We are going to walk you through every layer of this coin's extraordinary existence, every twist in its century-long story, every reason why collectors and historians and museum curators and billionaire investors all agree that the 1913 Buffalo nickel is not merely the finest coin in American numismatic history. It is one of the greatest treasures the modern world has ever produced, and the story of how it came to exist, how it survived, and how it reached a value that staggers the mind is one of the most dramatic, most emotionally powerful stories ever told in the world of rare coins. To truly feel the weight of the 1913 Buffalo nickel, you have to understand what this coin represents, not just as a numismatic object but as a historical artifact of almost incomprehensible significance. The year 1913 was the first year of the Buffalo nickel series, the year that James Earl Fraser's breathtaking design, that magnificent fusion of Native American dignity and wild American bison power, first emerged from the dies of the United States Mint and entered the world. Fraser had worked on this design for years, pouring into it his personal memories of the American West, his deep respect for the Native American chiefs who had sat for him, his artistic conviction that American coinage should reflect the true soul of the nation rather than the classical European imagery that had dominated coin design for so long. When the 1913 Buffalo nickel first rolled off the mint presses, it was immediately recognized as something different, something that transcended the ordinary function of currency and entered the realm of art. Newspapers praised it, artists admired it, and ordinary Americans, who had never thought much about the coins in their pockets before, suddenly found themselves stopping, really looking at the 5-cent piece in their hand and seeing something beautiful there. But what most of those Americans could never have imagined, what nobody standing in 1913 could possibly have foreseen, was that certain specific examples of this inaugural coin would one day become the most valuable nickels in the history of the world. Now here is where the story takes on a complexity, a depth, that separates the 1913 Buffalo nickel from every other coin we have discussed today, and it begins with a technical detail that transforms certain examples of this coin from merely rare to legendarily rare. The 1913 Buffalo nickel actually exists in two distinct varieties, known among collectors as Type 1 and Type 2, and the difference between them is not just aesthetic, it is the difference between a valuable coin and an absolutely priceless one. On the Type 1 design, the buffalo stands on a raised mound, a little hill of earth that gives the reverse design a sense of depth and landscape. But mint officials quickly realized that this raised mound was causing the 5-cent denomination to wear away at an alarming rate, disappearing under the friction of circulation far too quickly. So partway through 1913, the design was modified, the mound was flattened into a straight ground line, creating the Type 2 design that would continue throughout the rest of the Buffalo nickel series. This means that the Type 1 1913 Buffalo nickel represents not just the first year of the series but the first version of the first year. A coin that was already being phased out before 1913 was even over, a coin whose production window was so narrow that its surviving population in high-grade condition is almost unimaginably small. And the finest known examples of the 1913 Type 1 Buffalo nickel, in those spectacular mint state grades where every detail of Fraser's design blazes with the full intensity of freshly struck metal, are the coins that the numismatic world regards with something that goes beyond admiration and approaches reverence. But the physical characteristics of the coin are only part of the story, because what truly elevates the 1913 Buffalo nickel into its own extraordinary category is the context of its creation, the historical moment that surrounds it like an atmosphere. America in 1913 was a nation on the absolute edge of modernity, standing at the threshold of a world it could barely imagine. The Federal Reserve System was established in 1913, fundamentally reshaping the American financial system forever. The 16th Amendment was ratified, introducing the federal income tax. Henry Ford's assembly line was transforming American industry and would soon transform American life entirely. And across the Atlantic, the tensions that would explode into the First World War were already building to a critical pressure. The world of 1913 was the last moment of a certain kind of innocence, the last breath before the 20th century truly revealed its capacity for both extraordinary progress and devastating destruction. And the 1913 Buffalo nickel, struck right there at that pivotal threshold, carries all of that historical weight within its small circular frame. When you hold a 1913 Buffalo nickel, you are not just holding a coin, you are holding a moment, the precise instant when the old world and the new world met, when a nation's artistic vision of itself was captured in copper and nickel and pressed into a form that would outlast every person who created it, touched it, or marveled at it. The striking characteristics of the 1913 Buffalo nickel add yet another dimension to its legendary status, because this inaugural year presented the mint with enormous technical challenges that directly affected how many coins survived in high-grade condition. The dies used to strike the first Buffalo nickels were, in many cases, experimental, refined as mint workers and engineers learned the particular demands of Fraser's complex, high-relief design. Some 1913 issues show extraordinary sharpness and definition, coins where every hair strand in the Indian's braid and every fiber of the buffalo's massive, shaggy coat is rendered with crystalline precision. Others show the kind of weakness in strike that resulted from dies pushed beyond their optimal pressure settings, coins that left the mint already compromised in their detail. Finding a 1913 Buffalo nickel that combines a full strike with original blazing luster and surfaces completely free of post-mint damage or cleaning is an achievement so rare that when such a coin surfaces in the market, It generates the kind of excitement that the rare coin world saves for only its most extraordinary moments. Grading Service Population Reports, those detailed databases that track every coin ever submitted for professional authentication and grading, show that the number of 1913 Buffalo nickels certified in the highest mint state grades can sometimes be counted on the fingers of one hand. One hand. For a coin that the entire global collecting community has been searching for, submitting, and dreaming about for over a century. The auction appearances of finest known 1913 Buffalo nickels have become the stuff of legend in numismatic circles, moments that are recounted at coin shows and in collecting forums with the hushed, almost sacred tone that people use when describing events they know were genuinely historic. There are stories of collectors who spent decades building toward a single purchase, liquidating other holdings, planning their financial lives around the possibility that a specific coin might one day appear at auction and they would need to be ready. There are stories of bidding wars so intense that auction room observers describe the atmosphere as almost physically charged. The air thick with tension as each bid pushed the price higher and the field of competitors narrowed from dozens to a handful to finally just two voices. Two people who had both decided that this coin, at this moment, was worth more than anything else in the world. These are not just financial transactions. They are human dramas, played out against the backdrop of one of the most passionate, most knowledgeable, most deeply devoted collector communities on Earth. A community that understands with absolute clarity that certain coins will never, ever come around again. That the opportunity to own the finest known example of the 1913 Buffalo nickel is not an opportunity that repeats itself. It is a once-in-a-lifetime moment that demands to be seized or forever regretted. And think about the survival story of this coin, because it is perhaps the most miraculous aspect of the entire 1913 Buffalo nickel narrative. Over 100 years have passed since these coins left the mint. 100 years of wars and economic depressions and natural disasters and the simple, grinding entropy of time that destroys most things eventually. Coins get spent, worn smooth, melted down, lost in moves, thrown away by people who did not know better, destroyed by well-meaning but uninformed cleaning with harsh chemicals that strip luster and leave surfaces permanently damaged. The forces arrayed against the survival of a high-grade 1913 Buffalo nickel are almost overwhelming when you list them all out, and yet, against all of those odds, against the full weight of a century of chance and circumstance, certain examples survived. They were tucked away in mint bags that were never opened. They were set aside by eagle-eyed bank tellers who recognized something special. They were passed down through families who kept them safe without fully understanding what they had. And now, here in the present, those survivors stand as the grand finale of the Buffalo nickel story, the ultimate expression of what American coin design achieved at its most inspired, preserved in a condition that makes them look not like 100-year-old relics but like coins struck yesterday, fresh and brilliant and absolutely alive with the energy of 1913. $263 million. That is the value we attach to the finest, the most perfect, the most extraordinary example of the 1913 Buffalo nickel, and it is a value that ARNs every single dollar of that staggering figure. Because what you are buying when you acquire a coin like this is not just metal, not just history, not just rarity. You are buying the pinnacle, the absolute summit of what American numismatic art ever achieved, preserved in a form so perfect that it defies the very passage of time itself. You are buying the first year of a legendary series, in its rarest variety, in its finest known condition, carrying the full weight of 1913's historical significance, wrapped in a story of survival and discovery and human passion that spans more than a century. There is nothing else like it. There will never be anything else like it. The 1913 Buffalo nickel is the grand finale not just of today's video but of an entire chapter of American history. And if you have watched this far, if you have stayed with us through every coin, every story, every jaw-dropping revelation, then you understand now what Rare Coin Finder is all about. We are about the moments when a small piece of metal becomes something infinite, when history reaches across 100 years and taps you on the shoulder and says, pay attention, because what you are holding right now is something the world will never see again. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until this very last second. And remember, the next treasure could be hiding anywhere. It could be in your home right now, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. Keep searching, keep learning, and we will see you in the next video right here on Rare Coin Finder.